Hi. Today I want to talk with you briefly about the North-South Galatian theories. This brief video presentation is intended to help you answer question 1 in discussion board 4. These two theories have to do with the audience and location to which Paul's epistle to the Galatians is addressed. Now that's been a thorny problem for New Testament scholarship, as your assigned reading in your textbooks attests. In this brief video presentation, I will give you an overview of the problem, as well as the various solutions that have been proposed. First of all, an overview of the issues involved. The fundamental issue regarding the recipients of Galatians is the location of the churches addressed. That is, are they ethnic Galatians, which is the North Galatian theory, ethnic peoples who lived in the north-central part of Anatolia, Greek for the east, what the Romans called what we know today as modern-day Turkey? Or are they provincial Galatians, which is the South Galatian theory? That is, does the word Galatia refer to the Roman province of Galatia? I'll show you a map in a moment that makes that a bit clearer. Galatians chapter 1, verse 2 says this. Let me translate the Greek for you. Paul, apostle, not from men, neither through man, but through Jesus Christ and God the Father, the one having raised him, that is Jesus, from the dead, and all the brothers, or all the brethren with me, to, notice the pointer, to the churches of Galatia. To the churches of Galatia. To what does that refer? Some background might be helpful. The word Galatia derives from the word Gaul. Gaul is the ancient Roman name, Latin name, referring to the Iberian Peninsula, where today Spain and Portugal are. And so these are tribes, the Gaulites were Iberian tribes who moved eastward and settled in Anatolia south of the Black Sea. Hence we call that area, the Romans referred to that area where these Gauls settled as Gaul-Asia. Later it became written Galatia, or land of the Gauls. In 25 BC, the Romans conquered all of Anatolia, including the territory of the old Gaullist Empire, and they created a province, a Roman province, stretching from the Black Sea all the way to the Mediterranean Sea, which the Romans called Galatia. It was a province, or a Roman state ruled over by a provincial governor. And therefore you see the problem. When Paul in Galatians 1 verse 2 says to the Galatians, to what is he referring? Does he refer to that old ethnic territory in north-central Anatolia? Or does he refer to the later Roman province of Galatia in the south? Look at the map and you'll see what I'm referring to. Anatolia, the Iberian Peninsula, is off the map over here, but they moved, these Gauls moved into Anatolia, this is Turkey, or Anatolia, and they settled in this area, in the north-central part of Anatolia. And so this came to be known as Galatia, the land of the Gauls. But then the Romans came in, conquered this whole territory, and made a state out of this area, and they called this whole state Galatia. And so does Galatia refer just to the older northern part, or does it refer to the entire province, which would include Derbe, Iconia, Lystra, Antioch of Pisidia, where Paul traveled on his first missionary journey? So first of all, the South Galatian theory and the arguments in favor of the South Galatian theory. There is no evidence that Paul ever did missionary work that far north, close to the Black Sea. Acts chapter 16 verse 6 says, and they went through the region of Galatia and Phrygia, having been hindered by the Holy Spirit to speak the word in Asia. That's what the Greek literally says. In red, the part I've put in red, the Phrygia and Galatia region. Koran means region. And so the question is the article distributive? Does it mean the Galatia and Phrygian region, referring to just one territory, or is it not distributive and refers to two territories, the Phrygian region and the Galatian region? The South Galatian theory argues that it is distributive and only one region is mentioned, the Phrygian Galatian region, because some of the towns Paul visited were in one, Derbe, Lystra, Iconium were in Galatia, and some, Pisidian Antioch, in the other, in Phrygia. Galatians is the only word broad enough to encompass all ethnic peoples Paul encountered on his first journey. Another argument. The northern territory of Galatia was very sparsely populated, and travel was very difficult going north and south. The mountains would get in your way. And so why would Paul go there? There weren't many people there, and it was difficult to get there. Would Paul's critics have pursued him that far north? You've read Galatians, and you know part of the problem is that Paul's critics, these Judaizers who believed that circumcision was necessary for salvation, hounded him everywhere he went. Is it credible to believe that they would have gone all the way to the Black Sea pursuing Paul? And then Galatians chapter 4, verse 14, Paul says to the Galatians, "You received me as an angel of God." That may be an allusion to Acts chapter 14, verse 12, and Paul's ministry in Lystra, down in the south, where Paul was confused with the Greek god Hermes, who was the messenger god, or to say it another way, the angel god. And so if that is the case, if that's what Paul's referring to, another argument for the South Galatian theory. And then finally, Barnabas is mentioned 3 times in Galatians, and Barnabas accompanied Paul on the first journey only, where Paul went to the south of Galatia. Now, the arguments for the North Galatian theory are these. Etymologically, Galatia refers to ethnic Gauls, as we've already seen. Luke in Acts tends to favor geographical regions over imperial provinces like Galatia or Syria. Galatians is not broad enough of a term to include peoples as diverse as Phrygians and Lycaonians and Pisidians. And then, of course, the North theory would argue Acts 16:6, the region of Phrygia and Galatia, refers to 2 different groups, the region of Phrygia and the region of Galatia. Part of the problem with that is that in Greek, if you wanted to say the region of Phrygia and the region of Galatia, there's a very simple way to say it. You would simply use the article twice, the region of Phrygia, and then you'd put the article over here, and the of Galatia. Now it's unambiguous. It means 2 terms. But that's not what the Greek says. The Greek says the region of Phrygia and Galatia. But nonetheless, the North Galatian theory argues for 2 different areas, not 1. Some conclusions then. On balance, the arguments seem to favor the South Galatian theory. There are 2 reasons chiefly. The arguments for the North Galatian theory are all arguments from silence. There's no evidence Paul ever preached that far north. And then, of course, the coup de grace is this. If Paul wrote Galatians on the 3rd missionary journey, as the North Galatian theory maintains, then why doesn't he mention the Jerusalem conference, which occurred after the 2nd journey in AD 49? It would have settled the key issue in dispute. That is, circumcision is required of Gentiles for their salvation. If that had already been settled after the 2nd journey, and Paul wrote Galatians on the 3rd journey, why is he silent about that Jerusalem conference and the agreement? It would have settled the whole issue. Well, the South Galatian theory argues Paul doesn't mention the Jerusalem conference because it hadn't happened. And then finally, so what? What does all this matter? Well, let me say a couple of things. Location is important because it impacts when Galatians was written. If the North Galatian theory is true, that is, that this was done during Paul's 3rd missionary journey, in the mid to late 50s. That's a very late date for the writing of Galatians. It puts Galatians around the same time period as Romans. If the South Galatian theory is true, then Galatians was written following Paul's first missionary journey and prior to the Jerusalem conference, which was held in AD 49, a much earlier date, almost a decade earlier. If Galatians was not written until the late 50s, which is the North Galatian theory, then there's not enough time for Paul to have written some of his later letters, such as Ephesians, and so it calls into question whether or not Ephesians is actually from the hand of Paul. And then, of course, if the North Galatian theory is true, the historical reliability of Luke's Acts of the Apostles is also called into question. If the North Galatian theory is true, and Paul wrote Galatians after the Jerusalem conference, then why doesn't he mention it? Well, he doesn't mention it, according to the North Galatian theory, because you can't really trust what Luke says in Acts about the Jerusalem conference and the timing of the Jerusalem conference as being historically reliable. That's why this theory is important. Well, I hope that has been helpful, and I hope that you understand a bit better now the issues related to the location and audience of Paul's epistle to the Galatians. Till next time, take care. God bless.